What's going on? This is Stephen Christian and Brad Miller from Reactant Media. We are so excited to be joined today by Matt Galligan. He's an entrepreneur, a designer, a leader in technology and startups with a drive for quality design. Matt has started multiple companies, raised money through investments, and has had the experience selling those companies. So thank you so much for joining us, Matt. I really appreciate your time. I know you're joining us from, well, a hectic road trip from Chicago.
Yeah, thank you, and I'm excited to be here. Yeah, here just got in a couple of hours ago after a 12-hour drive with my brother in his truck. So I'm getting used to it, but glad to be here in this brand new house. Yeah,
Awesome.
Dude, it's so great to catch up with you. Like, so people listening in, I've known Matt since I was in my early 20s. What is it? Back in e-commerce, Monster Commerce days in
yeah,
good old Swansea, Illinois. Yeah,
oh,
2006. Yeah, 2005,
yeah.
2006. Holy cow.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, because I remember those are the days. That's when you got Social Thing off the ground, if I remember. That's when you started building that. I remember you showing it to me outside. I think it was on either on your I don't think it was a BlackBerry. It was a different device. It may have been a BlackBerry, but
I had a BlackBerry at the time, and I had I think I had like a Windows Phone too or something like that.
okay,
I mean,
Nokia and as well.
Nokia
Before
had all
iPhone.
that.
No
Oh,
iPhone.
yes.
This is like before iPhone days. So a pioneer.
For sure.
So I'm it's funny to get back together because it's just like all the years and so much going on. It's great to connect again. So thanks for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here. Well, Brad, like when I was working at Monster Commerce with you, that was after I decided that I wanted to go full time into tech, into doing this like startup idea I had. And I wanted to find a full-time job to kind of pay the bills while I worked on this nights and weekends with my buddies. And so that's how I found the job at Monster Commerce, like kind of like fledgling designer. Moved down to St. Louis, and then was there working with you, and then working on my little thing on the side.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean it's crazy because I think like when I think back of those days and like just how everybody was wanting to grow, because it was like 2008. 2008 was like the .com bubble burst or whatever. But I still feel at that point like Twitter was blowing up because you were like one of the top first Twitter users, if I remember. Like I can't remember like but I remember that was a big part to Social Thing.
So. Yeah, it was. I think the official count is that I'm in the first 140 users or something like that. I mean, 140 right. Because that's the character count, right? But something like that. Yeah. Been on there a long time.
It seems like you have the Midas touch when it comes to starting up companies. But if there was one piece of advice that you could give yourself before you started, your first company, Social Thing and Simple Geo, what would that piece of advice be?
It is to trust and lean on others when you are sort of maybe lacking confidence, but equally when you're overconfident. Because what I've kind of learned in many hard times throughout my career is that oftentimes you're wrong, and there are loads of people who have either been there, done that, know the mistakes that you're going to make, can help you avoid them well before you do, or at least when you're already in the thick of it and having challenges, know how to guide you back towards, a better path. And, there was a great commencement speech that Arnold Schwarzenegger gave where he said, "I'm not a self-made man." By all accounts, he's very much a self-made man, but he stands by this idea that it was the people who were around him, the community that was around him, that helped him get to where he was. And I'm the same way. And I really, really believe that, and know that every time that I have failed, it's almost always been because I put too much confidence in myself, or too much belief that I knew what I was doing, and didn't really take enough time to step back and work with others and learn from others and ask others advice and those kinds of things. It would be a little bit humble.
Yeah.
and trust others.
Man, that's a sign of a good leader, though, man. That's some great humility. That's really cool.
Yeah,
well,
that's great advice.
it's a long time coming, because I will tell you, I was not that way in the first long while. And frankly, still, to this day, you always struggle with it. And the one challenge about that when it comes to entrepreneurship is that you have to be so confident that you are the person to accomplish whatever it is that you have set out to do. You believe, with all of your being, that whatever problem you have set out to do, that you are the person to solve that problem, right? And so you do have to hold on to a significant amount of that confidence, but at the same time, you really have to know when you may need some other person to tap into.
That's powerful.
It's a tough balance.
Wow. Not to break off that subject, but Stephen, like, even with music, like, that's something for you, like, just confidence is probably a big thing. Obviously music and being a recording artist and whatnot. I mean, that's kind of similar, right? In regards to like where you want to go, where you want to take your music and where you want to go to take your business. Having that confidence and pushing that forward is something that you can relate, right?
Absolutely. And I think that, as far as musicians are concerned, I think most every great song was co-written, from the Beatles to, the Cure. You have all through the, the ages. It's just been like, I think we are best when we have someone there, sitting across the table, almost editing in real time with us. So that's powerful, man. I love the humility and I think that's a valuable piece of information for people that are starting up, whether that's a consultant agency that they lean on, whether that's their best friends, a counterpoint, their family. You just need someone that's going to give you like, high challenge and high praise at the same time. Like, you're doing a great job, but you suck in this area. You got to do better over here. Because if it's all just like, you're the best, you're the greatest, like, you'll never know, you'll never know your blind spots.
Absolutely. You are absolutely blind to the areas that you can improve upon. And also oftentimes you are deaf to the things that people will give you legitimate feedback on. And, to turn it back around for just a moment, to be able to hear that praise with authenticity, I'll give you a little bit of it, which is that one of your tunes, which was Finn from a long, long time ago, back when I was doing the first startup and then into the second startup, that amongst like maybe 5 other songs were the ones where when I needed to really blow off some steam and I really just needed to just get all as much energy as I could muster, I would get in my car and I would put that thing on about as loud as a volume as it could get, and I would just belt that song to the heavens, and it was always very cathartic. And so that one in particular definitely aided in the early days of my being an entrepreneur. So I got to give you a little bit of praise back to you on that one.
Man, thank you so much. And in return, I would love at least 5% of the company.
Yeah. Yes.
We can talk about that on the next one, my next go around. Sure.
Get it in the fine print. I love that.
Get it papered.
So coming back to, you were saying like back in the day, right? Do you remember our CEO at Network Solutions? Remember Champ Mitchell, the good old Champ stamp? Do you remember this? Oh my gosh. So funny. And I'm telling this story because I think it relates to kind of what I'm going to get into, but we were having a town hall and I remember we were all on a call, like everybody was like dialed in, listening in. And somebody asked the question in like, I think it was like 2006, like late 2006. Hey, would you ever consider letting people work from home a couple days a week?
Yeah.
For families and stuff. And man, I'll never forget his response. He was like, if you feel like that remote work is thing, find a different job. Like I was just like, whoa, that was really bold. And so now fast forward 2020, remote work is a big thing. I know you're a big fan. Obviously you have a son, Nash, he's an adorable kid. But tell me when did that click? When you say, wow, remote work, this is the thing, this is what I love. I'd love to hear that, a little bit of that.
Yeah, well, you go back far enough in my Twitter timeline and you're going to find me being anti-remote work. this early belief that the only way to produce the best creative work is to be in the room with the others. And, I will say there are some times where that can be a little bit challenging. Otherwise, like, for instance, music, a little bit difficult when you're not in the same room together, but I'll set that aside for a moment. Over time, kind of as you build up some of that muscle and build up that confidence, and also the tool set changed and, the processes changed and all this. Nowadays, I don't believe that at all. I actually think that, being able to work from home, provided that you're able to get into a rhythm, a routine, an office, whatever you can do to set up for your best success, you really are able to produce, high quality work, just that deep work that would otherwise be difficult in an office. And, even if you go back to, I want to say it might be like 2012 when Marissa Mayer was running Yahoo, very famously pulled back everybody that was already remote and said, you got to come into the office, and so I would say the shift for me happened, each one of the companies that I've worked with. In the first one, we had worked with this designer that I had not even met until the company was acquired and done. So 15 months working with him, and I had never met him in person. And then through each of the times and experiences in these companies, I've had people that were remote, to the point where the last startup that I had, we were all remote. And so just have kind of edged into this ever so slightly. And now that I'm working for a company based out of New York, initially I was kind of just going in maybe once a week or so, and then COVID hit, and then it forces everybody to stay home. And it's been a shock to the system for a lot of people. And I'll even say for my own, where I'm really used to working from home, Matt Mullenweg, founder of WordPress, said, this is like the boss level of working from home. This isn't just, okay, you can work at home now and everybody's distributed. It's like, no, everything is hard. It's like, there's kids and there's stress and there's just loads of different input that you would normally get. But I will say that I think that it is absolutely the future of information work. I think that having the right mindset around it, which is that you can have these large swaths of time where you can be, creative, get all of your work in, get all of your work done, find all the right ways to connect with your coworkers. It's going to be challenging for a while, and we're going to be kind of wading in the waters until we find what the right path is. But I think in the next, say, 10 to 20 years, office culture will dramatically change. Working from home will be the default, or at least be a default option where it might not have been before.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting because I know I've been doing it since 2010. I flirted with it in 2009 with the company I worked with before, but when I started Lyft, that was the pinnacle for us. That was our moment of, we could do this from home. And I remember moving to Florida in late 2010, and I was just running an agency where my business partner was back in St. Louis and I was in Florida, and then he moved to Texas, and then we were basically we were doing our thing remotely. Everybody was remote. So I do feel like this is the time we're going to see a lot of companies go that way. So I was curious to know, like, kind of when it clicked.
It does take some interesting work. I'm like heading up a task force, whatever, inside the company that I'm working for to set up plans and policies and all these kinds of programs to make sure that we're successful with distributed work at the company, because most of the people at the company have never worked in a distributed fashion before.
Wow.
So it's interesting challenges.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what those protocols are going to become for a society. Is it because is it a project based, like get this done, doesn't matter how long it takes you, or this is the amount of time that we expect this project to be done? There's a lot that we're all going to kind of figure out together.
For sure.
Companies, I don't want to say like Yahoo, but you understand, like the bigger companies are going to set a huge corporate tone, which can have ramifications for decades to come. So
Facebook
interesting topic. That's a cool topic. So Matt, I love the magazine Fast Company, and you wrote an article called 6 Morning Habits Besides Meditation that help you focus all day. And some of my favorites are the first 3 were: take a walk, declutter your workspace, and take a cold shower. And I highly encourage you guys. We'll link to this, we'll link to this article so you guys can check it out for yourself. But if you could have added a seventh, if you could go back in time and have added a seventh onto that, what would be the seventh morning habit besides meditation that would help you focus?
Oh man, I think that beyond, having the routines, having, the walking time, the morning workout, whatever it may be, I think those are all super critical. One thing that I've added to my routine in the last, let's say, 2 months, is this practice that I had heard of called morning pages. And it's something that I've brought into my routine that I'm really beginning to enjoy. And I probably don't do it right, but I just like the idea that this is a brain dump. It's an opportunity for you to wake up, to open up a text document. I use a tool called Rome Research to write down things in. And it's just, you could think of it like a note-taking tool that's a little fancy. But I wake up, I kind of hit a timer, and I just go for 30 minutes. I'm usually up around 5 a.m., brew my coffee, sit outside on the front porch, take my iPad, and just start banging on the keyboard until 30 minutes is up. And what's interesting about it is, since there is no specific agenda, you might be writing about yesterday, things you did, right? Because after work, you're probably not sitting at your computer and note-taking or anything like that. So you might recap what you did in the night before. You might be talking about just like the shower idea that you had. You might be talking about what you're excited about for the rest of the day. You might be doing anything else. There's all kinds of writing prompts that you can find where when you hit that stuck moment and you're like, man, I've been sitting here staring at the screen for 60 seconds and I don't have anything that I'm writing down. You just look at the prompts and be like, all right, what am I anxious about? What am I excited about? What am I looking forward to? And just start writing. And I've just found that creates this space for the day, right? Yeah. Where you've kind of taken your brain and you've set it out on the page. And then the value that continues to provide over time, I mean, you have this archive now that you can go back and kind of review, like, oh, what was that thing that I swear I wrote down? I had some good idea some while ago, and maybe it's sitting back there. But I was never much of a note taker. I was never a good journaler, any of those things. And then I just heard this concept of morning pages, built it into my routine. It replaced like stupid TV show I might wake up with in the morning, or some podcast that I just sit and listen to for 45 minutes and zone out, and became productive. It became valuable. And I've really enjoyed that.
Man, that's awesome. It reminds me of the movie Elf with Will Ferrell. In the story, Peter Dinkle has all these ideas for great kids books, and he leaves his black book behind. So if you ever leave your iPad around, I'm swinging that. You created so many incredible companies. I'm just gonna be like, look at this, Brad. I've discovered nanotech time travel. Anyway,
we found it. We found our out. That's awesome.
When your morning brain dump, I'm excited.
I actually have a question about that.
Sure.
So like bullet journaling and stuff like that. Do you actually, you said you just type it out? You don't actually write it, or do you write with hand?
I type. I'm really, really slow at writing. And I think that actually if I was fast at writing, it might be a good exercise. But there is like, because I use this tool, I'm able to kind of go back and link some things together, and it's kind of fancy. But all that aside, it's because I'm faster at typing. But what's different about the way that I'm writing when I'm doing these morning pages is I'm not working out complete sentences. I'm not stressing about, am I writing perfect, sort of journal-like prose. It's more like a bullet point. Here's a bullet point. If there's a sub-thought to that bullet point, indent the bullet point and just keep going, right? And if I'm like, oh, I'm on an interesting train of thought, I'll just next bullet point, next bullet point, next bullet point. And it removes that stress of, I'm not writing for anybody else's consumption but my own. If somebody eventually, Steve, if you came across that later on down the road and pulled that up, it might make sense to you, and I hope you could find some value from it. But it's just about just get it out on the page,
Man, we have learned some great things, and some things I'm going to take away from our conversation is one, no matter where you are in building a company, building a business, always rely on others. Always have a co-writer. Whatever that looks like for you, whether that's a partner, whether that's whatever that is, have a co-writer. And then secondly, man, I love the morning brain dump. I've personally never done that. I mean, I journal, and usually it's more kind of either like a to-do list or what I did, but it's never
Yeah,
a brain dump. So man, thank you so much for the advice. That's incredible.
Yeah,
totally.
Matt, like, and we don't want to keep too much of your time, I know, but like, this is so great. Like, just to catch up with you. Like, I would love for you to come back again. I think there's so much more to actually discuss. So, like, we really appreciate you jumping in. How can people find you online? Where can they go?
Yeah, easiest way is Twitter. I'm just MG, so just Matt Galligan initials. So MG on Twitter, MG on Instagram. You can sneak the pics of my little dude because that's pretty much all I post on Instagram these days. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, absolutely. We'll link that, and I'll also link to that program that you were talking about with writing, because that definitely I might have to check that out, because I've been a things guy for a while,
Yeah.
been using the task tool, but sometimes there's just something about like just writing things down. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
For
joining us.
sure.
And when the world opens back up, Matt, if you're ever back in Chicago, you got to come hang out at the House of Blues with me.
Love to. Would love to. That would be awesome. For sure.
Hey, this is Stephen Christian and Brad Miller from Reactant Media saying thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode.
And also check out the little notification bell. That's going to give you updates when we have new episodes. For example, the little boxes floating here above my head. Make sure to click on one of those. You might see a new episode or win $1 million. Who knows? Click on it. Just
that little box, it's like magic. How did you do that?
Click it.